Hello everyone, welcome to today's student roundtable. My name is Lee. I work in the recruitment team here at Ravensbourne University, and I'm joined by my colleague Lydia. Lydia, do you want to say hello?
Hi, I'm Lydia. I also work in the recruitment team here at Ravensbourne.
And I'm joined today by two wonderful students. I've got Becky and I've got Lovely. Becky, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Hi, I'm Becky and I'm a third year architecture student.
Thank you. And Lovely?
My name's Lovely and I am a third year interior architecture student.
Amazing. And you'll notice that we're all in our respective homes because we're filming this in lockdown 3 in the UK. So currently we're waiting schools, colleges and universities to open back up again so we can all get back in and hopefully enjoy some of the building. But without further ado, I wanted to kind of start right at the beginning with both of you. So you're both third year students. Hopefully you can cast your minds back 3 years ago and maybe tell us a bit about why you chose to study at Ravensbourne. Becky, if we start with you.
I think for me it was really unexpected because I went into the whole university process and Ravensbourne was my last interview and I was really over it and I was like, do I really want to go? But when I came into the building and at my interview, everything changed. I just loved the environment and it was so fun and I was laughing during my interview process, which just made me realize that the environment is, for me at least, is equally as important to the course that I'm doing. So that's the reason why I chose Ravensbourne. I think it was just the atmosphere and everyone was super friendly and welcoming.
Amazing. Cool. And we're going to come back to that interview process in a bit because I think there's more questions we want to ask on that. But Lovely, how about you?
I chose Ravensbourne because they offer like a foundation course. So I've been here since I've been here for 4 years now, at Ravensbourne, and no one had really spoken about like a foundation degree, and it really intrigued me because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and one of like the short courses in foundation was 3D which kind of led me into this architecture interior realm, and I wouldn't have like found out about, it was something I was interested in and until I went to the course. So that was the reason why I chose Ravensbourne.
So you kind of stumbled into interior design as a result of one of your projects. That's so nice to hear.
Yeah.
And so I guess going into the foundation, did you come from A levels?
Yeah.
So kind of was one of your motivations for coming onto the foundation just like, I want another year of kind of education to kind of figure out what I want to do because I'm not really sure?
Yeah, so I thought I was going to do fashion actually initially, but then when I did the foundation thing I was like, no, fashion is not for me. So it was a great year to really figure out what I wanted to do, and I personally believe like it's like the best year of my student life, because it was like the people that I was able to meet as well in Ravensbourne, like everyone was kind of, I don't know, it wasn't a structured sort of degree or diploma, which was quite nice. It was a great way to sort of break away from A level to this foundation degree. But yeah, I would really recommend that.
Amazing. Oh, that's so nice to hear. Lydia, I think it's over to you for the next question.
Yeah, so obviously you both had your interview when the world was normal, but what was that process like for you, and including, what did you put in your portfolio, what kind of work, how much did you include, just that whole process in general? It'd be great if you guys could just talk to us about that. We'll start with Lovely.
So for my interview, so like I said, I did my foundation, and then from my foundation it was a little bit easier to get into the degree, but it was just, I did fine art for my A levels, so it was a lot of like painting and stuff like that, but I think just having a wide range of different sort of medium, and it's not necessarily, you have to do Rhino or SketchUp and you have to present that. I think working on your strengths, whether that be drawing or making collage and stuff like that, and just really focusing on your strengths, I would say. And there's not a lot of maths involved, you'd be surprised. Yeah, there's not a lot of that in the course, so don't be put off and think that architecture is just like you know, you're meant to study maths in A levels. Like, it's not like that at all. So yeah.
Yeah, I think what Lovely was saying is super important. That do what you enjoy. I think because I've sat in a few interview processes for the new students coming in, and I think there's a huge misconception that the tutors or the person interviewing want to see you using software like SketchUp or Rhino, which it's really nice to see. But I think what is even more special is to see your interest outside of these traditional architectural models. And I've definitely learned that on my course, we really value model making or drawing or just experimenting. It seems like we learn more from it. So I would definitely recommend to include a huge range of different types of media. And it's not about a nice, finished, perfect piece of work. A lot of the time, it's about the development and how you get to one stage. So just show as much, I guess. It's really nice to see loads and loads and loads of work and you being excited over it rather than a really clean, sterile, perfect image, I guess. But those are still recommended, I guess, but a range.
And so the interview itself, was it laid back? Was it a bit more formal? You know, how did you find that that part of the process?
For me, it was super laid back. I was laughing the entire time. It was so enjoyable. And I think it's just, when you go into interviews, you're always, of course, you're nervous. It's something very different. But I think, especially at Ravensbourne, the fact that they bring in existing students with a tutor, that really helps just to calm everything down and keep it real and just friendly. So yeah, it was very relaxed, and it was just trying to get to know each other, I guess. It was to see whether I fit in the place and whether I'd be happy here. So yeah.
Lovely, I can see you nodding. How was it for you?
Yeah, no, it's sort of like the same experience. I had Jeff for my interview, and you think an interview is sort of like very formal, but when you're there and you're at Ravensbourne, you really like, you're just sitting there and you're like, oh, actually this is a bit more casual, and you're actually just talking about your work, and it shouldn't be something intimidating because it's something you're passionate about. But yeah, no, I felt really comfortable in my interview, which is nice.
And was that the same at other interviews you went to? Becky, I know you said it was your last interview when you came to Ravensbourne, and Lovely, I don't know if you went to other interviews at other institutions, but were those interviews the same? Were they also laid back, or did they have a different feel to them?
I went to another one in Chelsea, and it wasn't the same. There was no, I think having a student there with the tutors like sort of eased it, like what Becky said basically. Because you know, when you look at a tutor, you're like somebody that's above me or something like that. But having a student there and they can talk about their experience was really nice. So yeah, it was different for Ravensbourne.
Yeah, that's the same for me. It was very, I don't know, very formal. My other interviews, which I expected, but it was a nice change to go into something that was completely different. And I think that was one of the main reasons why I chose Ravensbourne in the end.
Great, it's so nice to hear, and a relief that our interview was like that, and that it made you come and study here. And so both of you're going into third year now. You probably had a whole year of normal learning, I guess, for want of a better phrase, before kind of switching over to this hybrid model. How have you found that? Has it been challenging? Has there been positives out of it? Tell us a bit about how that switch over in the pandemic has worked for you guys, and I guess what's been good and what's been bad. Becky, do you want to start?
I think it's definitely different. I've never done this before, and there has been times where it's been quite challenging, I would say. But I think what really helps me is to go on Zoom calls with my friends, so like Lovely, and just have them in the background. We don't necessarily need to talk to each other, but it's just knowing that there's someone's presence there and that you can ask a question if you're stuck on something or you need an eye on something. And I think I was quite worried at the beginning that we would lose all the kind of social elements, or the meeting up and seeing different years and the different people in the course. But I think we've done a good job to try and bring like our talks and lectures after uni online. So we've had really like amazing opportunities from different people in practice all over the world. So it is a drawback that we can't do it in person, but it's also amazing because we're speaking to people that we wouldn't normally speak to just because of location.
And lovely, how about you?
I think Becky said most of it, to be honest. Like, it's, you know, it's strange times, but it's kind of nice that, you know, we're still able to sort of communicate, even if like we have a friend that's in China, even though there's different time zones and he's in a different country, we're able to like Zoom call and still have that sort of environment, because at uni we sort of created like an office space where we'd stay there until like closing time. But, you know, it's still sort of nice to have that even via Zoom. But yeah.
So that's something that always struck me about you guys in the architecture department, is that you'd be, you know, some of the first people to arrive in the morning and the last ones to leave at night, and security was sort of kicking you out. And it's kind of really nice to hear that kind of studio environment, I guess that you'd call it, is continuing sort of virtually. Do you think that's something that is kind of exclusive to you guys, or do you think that other departments and other courses are doing that, or do you think that's kind of an architecture specific thing?
I wouldn't know. I think we're very much in architecture. We don't really know what other people do just because we're so busy all the time. But I hope so. I think it's super, super helpful. And it'd almost be nice to see, like, what if we did have spaces across different courses, because we learn off each other. It'd be interesting what conversations could come up.
And you mentioned that you've got friends in different time zones. Like, how does that work? Are you guys up late at night, or are they up early? And are you both based in the UK?
Yes.
Yeah. So obviously there's no time zone issues for you, but how about your colleagues? Are they kind of having to join live lessons at weird times, and how's that working for them?
They, you know, because majority of us are in the UK. I think they sort of have to work with our time zone sort of thing. But yeah, I think it's nice that they're still trying. I think it's quite difficult, obviously. You know, we're in two different parts of the world and stuff. But yeah, I think Zoom really brings us all together. I mean, it's not all the time that everyone's like motivated and super positive, but I think it's this online hybrid learning has sort of encouraged, like, for people to be like, to encourage others, you know, if they're sort of falling off or being discouraged. It's quite nice that we still have this environment, and like WhatsApp groups and stuff, group chats are super good.
And leaving your Zooms on all day, does that open up the opportunities for faux pas to happen? Do they happen regularly, or are you both quite what's the word, professional about your approach to Zoom?
Depends.
Do you ever like leave your camera on sometimes and just forget that you've left it on, and you're just sort of picking your nose while you're doing your work and stuff? Like,
no, I hope not.
Yeah, I think, well, Becky and I sort of on Thursdays, because we have tutorials on Thursdays and stuff, we have like wine evenings and stuff. You just get to talk about work and do, you know, and still like have a chat and stuff like that, which is quite nice.
That does sound really nice. If I wasn't doing dry January, that would sound even nicer. Great. Sorry, we went off track a little bit there. Lydia, back to you.
I'll bring it back to architecture. So as you guys are both in third year, I'm sure you've worked on a lot of projects whilst you've been at Ravensbourne, but can you pick like a favourite that you've worked on, maybe one that's like the most memorable? And if you have anything to show, that'd be great as well. We'll start with Becky.
Yeah, so my favorite project was year 2 term 3 project. I'll just share my screen. It was, I think for me, it was one of my favorite ones just because I really I had enough time to kind of explore every single little detail that I wanted to. And normally, like in first term, the projects go by really fast just because of the lack of time. But for this project, I really had enough time to go into the detail of literally the tiniest of things, but I was just so obsessed. And I really loved the drawings that I made of it, and it was very much of like a collage style of model making, but drawing and digital rendering. So I'm kind of pushing against using Rhino or 3D software just because I like the character of it. But I just loved the playful aspect of it. And it was a project that we got to choose, almost form our own brief. So I looked into the importance of seed and how we should go into seed harvesting and collection and grow a community in a space. So like creating little pockets for like communication and education and things like that. So yeah, this is just my favorite one. I really enjoyed it, and I got really sad when it ended because I just wanted to do more, and I feel like all of us kind of get to a point where we finish a project and we want to do more, but we can't. So yeah, that was my favorite one.
Yeah, I have Alberto, who's the head of architecture. He's shown me that one before, and I believe I think there's an architecture at Ravensbourne, the website, and you can like explore and walk around and have a look at some of the sort of planning and ideas.
Yeah, no, we spent I think for last year we were kind of bummed out that we couldn't have an exhibition, so we kind of, with the help of the tutors, kind of created this virtual reality which questioned how we like view a space or an exhibition. So for architecture, it was like, what if we could walk around our space? So if you have the link for that, it's really cool to look at because you see at 1-to-1 scale, which you don't really normally experience.
Yeah, 100%. Lovely. What about you? What was your favorite project that you've worked on?
Yeah, I'll share my screen as well. So I really like that year 2 term 3 project, but I wanted to sort of go back to year 2 term 1. We was able to go to Madrid for like a trip, and we was working with a local school in Fuencarral, and it was just nice to like collaborate with the kids and sort of ask them what their ideal city looks like. And it gave us as designers a different sort of perspective on how to take a project forward by being able to like collaborate with the little kids, which I thought was pretty cool. And also like it gave me some sort of like confidence because we had to sort of like talk about our projects to the redevelopers of the current site, which was quite scary, but it's good to sort of, it was good that the tutors pushed us and threw us in the deep end and sort of present our stuff. But yeah, I think that was an exciting project because it was like we had a client sort of thing, and yeah, that was fine.
Did you get feedback from the developers?
Yes. So sorry, it was a while ago, so I had to think about that. Yeah, so we had to present in front of them, and they told us, what they thought about the projects and stuff like that. But yeah, it was really fun. It was a really nice trip as well. A lot of architecture stuff. So yeah.
Great. I will pass over to Lee.
Thank you. So we've already heard about your wine Thursdays that you have, girls, and sort of your business meetings, so we say. But what else do you do kind of outside of your contact hours? So obviously you have all your live lectures that you have to go to and your tutorials, but what does the rest of your week look like, and what do you spend your time doing sort of towards your degree? Sorry, Becky, let's start with you.
Sorry, I'm just thinking. We do a lot. It's a lot of work. I think with architecture, it's just because it's a verified course by ARB. Naturally, you just have a lot to do. But I think one of the things it's also you don't know how long something is going to take, and a lot of people on the course are quite perfectionist and we want things in a particular way. But I think I do a range. I do a lot of drawings, but modeling, for me, the way I think is continuously going between two mediums and thinking at things at really, really small scale, and then thinking at things at larger scales. So it's really a range of things. And I think what's really important to note is everyone has their own methods or ways of doing things. So the way I approach a project and what I do outside my time outside of the course, Lovely would do something completely different, just because that's the way she kind of works. But I think that's really special, and I think the tutors really, really value that. And they don't expect us, or they don't push us to do the same things, or like they don't say you have to do this and this, because they know we just don't work like that.
So do you often find yourself having to, I guess, kind of do things twice if you're approaching it from the sort of design perspective and drawing, and then you're looking at maybe building it in Rhino or the kind of mathematic implications of it? Are you often having to go design something one way and then almost redesign it or produce it again in a slightly different medium?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's repeating what you're doing, because I feel like every step you take, it's almost an iteration, so you're always progressing. But in the different mediums, it requires you to think differently and question different aspects that you might not be able to question on 2D drawing. So it's a lot of iterations. It's not starting over and scrapping it and then starting over again. It's continuously working on that same idea, but exploring it in different ways. And if it works, that's great. If it doesn't, that's also great. So yeah.
Okay, cool. And Lovely, how about you? Kind of, what is it any different to interior design, kind of the processes that you have and the things that you have to focus on outside of the course?
I think with ideas, I don't think it's that much different. We sort of started off with like site analysis and all that stuff, but it all with what Becky was saying, I think there's some things that you have an idea and you put it down on paper that you can't really project the same idea onto Rhino. There's sort of limitations with 3D drawings on Rhino and stuff like that. So I think, continuously, I think it's evolving from like drawings to model making to Rhino. And I don't think there's, you sort of stop your design or your idea. I think it's constantly evolving through the different mediums and stuff like that. But yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think I get what you're saying. Like Becky, that some of the work that you showed us, was that built in Rhino or was that hand drawn? Because that obviously looked like from my knowledge, Rhino is like a CAD program. So the kind of textures that you had in that looks like they'd be very difficult to kind of create in a CAD program. Or have I completely got the wrong end of the stick there?
No, I think what I've discovered and loved is the fact that a lot of students in architecture and ideas you have to be really smart about what you're doing because you don't have that much time. So we like to use a combination of like CAD, but then if you want like those smaller detailed textures, you bring it into Photoshop and you combine it. So it's a lot of combination of different systems and programs, which ultimately ends up with this like amazing drawing. And you're like, how the hell did you do that? But it's a process. It's a collection of different processes and softwares to make one thing.
So you tricked me. That's what happened. Cool. Okay. Okay. Lydia, back to you for the next question.
So Becky, you've kind of mentioned a bit about this already, about having talks from people that previously, before working remotely, might not have been able to. but can you guys tell us a bit about what sort of industry talks you've attended whilst at Ravensbourne, whether that was in person or online? We'll start with Becky, since I brought you up.
Yeah, so when we were in the building, we used to have talks every Thursday evening, and it would be people from the profession, but not necessarily architecture or interior design. It would be the design profession. So we had graphic designers or architects, but also like illustrators. So we had the opportunity to kind of see what other people were doing and apply what they told us into our work, which I think was super helpful, because sometimes you can get stuck and think that because you're studying architecture, you should only look at architecture, where I think I've definitely learned that you can learn and take things from any kind of design or any type of industry. And we've been super lucky to kind of bring that talk series after uni onto Zoom. So love that you can talk about that.
I just wanted to add on to that as well. Some of the tutors, like when we was in the building, they were able to bring like students from different unis or like that studied at Ravensbourne as well, to show us their portfolio, or how they, they sort of took on a project, which is quite nice to have after a long day or after a long week of doing your work. It's nice, it's sort of like I don't know, breath of fresh air sort of thing, to see how they took on the work, which is quite nice. But yeah, and it's still carrying on Zoom. So now we've moved it to Tuesdays. But yeah, it's still sort of the same environment. We're still getting the same, like various different types of people in different industries to come and do talks, which is nice. Or even some tutors talk about their projects, which is really interesting, because you think, oh, they're tutors, but it's nice to actually see what they've done or what they're currently doing.
That's really interesting. Oh, sorry, go on.
Sorry, to add on to that, we just started this new like film forum. So every month now we get together, and we, before the meeting, we watch a film and we can talk about it, and then we kind of have not a lecture but a discussion about film and architecture. And I've personally really enjoyed it, just because it's a different mindset and way of thinking, which I think is super important. And it's nice to kind of go into a different discipline that you might not expect and learn something from that discipline. So that's a forum that's currently just started, which is exciting.
Yeah, it seems like and you guys can confirm this, tell me if I'm right or wrong, but it seems like the course leaders are quite open to how people interpret architecture, like various mediums, models, things outside of like models and photos and things like that.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah, is that something?
Yeah. No, it definitely is. I think when I don't know, this might be a bit off topic, but when I came into architecture, I was very much like, oh, architecture is building or like a housing. But now my mind is like, that is not what architecture is. Architecture is everywhere and everything, and it's a different way of thinking, which is not what I expected at all.
Yeah, and I also wanted,
go on, lovely.
Sorry, I just want to quickly add, like once a week on like Tuesdays, we get to like, once a guest speaker has spoken, we get to stay behind and talk to other students within like first and second years as well, and sort of talk about how a week's gone or what we thought about the presentation, whether we liked it or not. And it's just a space where we can be open with the other years studying architecture and interior architecture, which is quite nice. And it encourages us to sort of, still be a community somehow. But yeah, because I feel like first years might find it intimidating, because obviously they don't know what it's like to be at Ravensbourne, or they haven't seen the second or third years. So it's a nice space I think we've created.
Cool. So I'm really interested about this film forum, and kind of is it a case of you watch a film about architecture, so or like almost like a documentary about architecture, or are you looking at architecture within a film? So like, I don't know, taking like a Hollywood film, I'm thinking of something like Inception, which is very sort of architectural heavy. Are you looking at a film like that and looking at how they've done set design and building design, or are you looking at kind of like a documentary about buildings or
So it's
other things?
like actual, like, wait, so it's not a documentary. So we're just watching mainstream media kind of films. So this month was Ex Machina,
Right.
and talking about how, so it's more about understanding the set and things like that. Which is, I don't know, I think it's really interesting because when we watch a movie, we kind of completely forget about the surroundings, but it's so important to always build the scene, which is super relevant to what we're doing on the course.
Yeah, totally. And
yeah.
that's what I was hoping, that it was that way around, because that just sounds really exciting, and it almost takes your discipline off in a completely different direction and allows you to think about your own profession in a completely different way, and hopefully sort of opens up new ideas to you about kind of where you might take your career in the future. That's really cool. Cool. So final question, I think, is around advice, and if you can sort of put yourselves back in your shoes from 3 years ago, what would you kind of tell your past selves about, I don't know, your interview, your portfolio, but also your sort of journey into university to try and make it less scary for yourself? Lovely, do you want to start?
There's so much to say. I think just experiment and don't limit yourself, and really like focus on your strengths, whether that be, you know, through drawings, through making collage and stuff like that, and really hone in on that. And I don't know, for those students that are able to one day go into the building and see how like open the space really is, like you're able to just go to floor 8 and sort of see other students, like fashion students, what they're doing, and have a conversation with them. I think that's what's nice about Ravensbourne. The space is open, there's no rooms, so it allows for conversations from different courses to sort of happen. So yeah, socialize in that way and don't limit yourself.
I think for me, it's so cliche, but don't be afraid to make mistakes. I think for us, at least, most of our best work comes from the stuff that was either unexpected or went horribly wrong, that resulted us to figure out how to make something or do something better. And it can be really daunting going into a course and not knowing anyone, but I think it's useful to just remind yourself that everyone's in that situation, and everyone wants to kind of get to know each other. So don't be afraid to talk to people, or if you like what they're doing, just say like, hey, like I love that. How did you do that drawing? Because in reality, we, like, as great as the tutors are, we learn the most from other people. So whether I want to know how to do a drawing, but I've seen Lovely done that I don't know, I'll just go to Lovely and ask her. So don't be scared to say hi, I guess. Yeah, that's so cliche.
No, it's perfect, and it's also the right. It's totally right. You know, in your industries, don't be afraid to make mistakes. I think if someone's applying for dentistry or medicine, then maybe don't make mistakes is probably not the best advice to give. But in architecture, of course, you want to learn by making mistakes and improving and redesigning. So yeah, thank you. Amazing. Becky, I know you're on Unibuddy, aren't you? So if anyone has any questions, they can always reach you on there.
Yeah.
Lovely, are you on there as well, or
No?
Okay, that's fine. Amazing. So thank you both for joining us. It's been amazing to sort of hear your experiences this year and know that you're both doing well and thriving rather than surviving. So thank you for joining us. If everyone watching, thank you for joining us, and if you've got any questions, please do get in touch. So thank you. Bye.